Good morning, my name is Rob Newman. I am one of the partners at Carter, Collins and Meyer, and I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time this morning to watch this little video. The video today that I'm going to do, it's the first one for a while that we've actually put out there, and this is about becoming a limited company in the UK in 2026. Now, one of the fantastic things about the United Kingdom is it's really easy to get into business. And to create a limited company from nothing in the UK is one of the simplest in the Western world, if not the simplest. Realistically, using some of the systems that are available online, you can probably have a company up and running in an hour in the UK. Now that is a fantastic situation to be in. But the trouble is, a lot of these services that are offered out there don't take into account things that are going to become incredibly relevant to you down the line. And today's video is going to explore some of those problems as to why you need to give a little bit of thought and a little bit of pause before you press that 12 quid online service to create your limited company. Now, limited companies are a fantastic opportunity to have. If you are not familiar with them, what a limited company does is it gives you limited liability. They come about, they're very historic from the railway structures that were created in the United Kingdom in the 1800s. People wanted to do the biggest capital infrastructure build that had ever been seen in the world, and were frightened of putting all of their own money in that, because if it goes wrong, they lose everything. So they clubbed together, put money together, and allowed a build of something that had never been seen before. And in so doing, created limited liability. I lose the amount of money that I have put into this particular business, and no more. Now that principle still stands, with certain caveats. But if you go out and create those from a standardized pack of paper, there's a whole realm and ream of things that can happen. Often the structure that is put there by that formation agent isn't going to serve you down the line. One of the most classic ones is two of you go into a company together. Two of you start a business together, and the two of you have different things that you need to do with your business. I have to work on a day-to-day basis in it, whereas Fred doesn't need to be there every day. Because I have to be there every day and I'm the one that's doing most of the work, I need to earn more money from this business than Fred does. But if you set your company up wrong, you can't do that. You can't pay me differently to Fred. And one of the greatest things that we see go wrong in setting up limited companies is not giving thought to the types of shares that are in place in those companies. By not giving thought to the types of shares that are in place to those companies, it means everybody has to earn the same thing. Now, not everybody can earn that same thing at certain times in the companies. It also means that if one person puts more in cash, assets, things that they actually use, they can't be compensated for that in a simplistic way. So by simply looking at the way the shares are created in your company can make a big difference. Now that won't be looked at for you if you just go to one of these online services. One of the other things is the rights that those shares then carry. There's loads of tax law and loads of tax cases around rights of shares and what can go wrong with them. But if you have different rights to it and different responsibilities, that it's easy to set up at the beginning. It's easy to do on day one when you're first going out there, to create those differences and to just give it that little bit of thought. But it's quite hard down the line to then change it if you are in some sort of problem, dispute, transition or change later. Bringing in investors is also that same issue. Investors are often found within smaller businesses, and it's a whole subject in itself which I'm going to do a video on in 2026. But bringing investors brings with it different needs for those people. They're going to have to do things in a different way. So you're going to have to set your company up in a different way to allow that to actually happen. Now, it's really simple to do to start off with, but you've got to do it. You've got to sit down and get that paperwork right. And in doing that, you've got to look at your Articles and Memorandum of Association. And when you look at your Articles and Memorandum of Association, you're going to want to do other things with them, because you'll find it's not just those types of shares. It's what happens if somebody wants to leave. What happens if there's a dispute? What happens if somebody's looking to retire? Or you're bringing in somebody different, that third person. It's no longer just me and Fred. Now Jane is joining us. What happens in that circumstance? And all of that is the rules of the company. And the rules of the company are in that Articles and Memorandum of Association. Now, the ones that you get for your 12 quid online are great. They cover everything, but they cover it in a really broad, unknown way that leaves it very vague, that doesn't allow you the structure that you are going to need within your business. So by giving that thought up front and to giving that specifics, this is how we can do things on day one, how somebody joins, how somebody leaves, what we do to change circumstances or change things has a huge impact to you down that line into your business as to how you are going to run it, organize it, grow it, invest in it, and eventually exit. Now, here's a practical example of one I've actually seen. I saw a situation where the two people were working differently within that company. They were working differently. One was in it all day long, one wasn't. The types of shares that they had set up were the off-the-shelf ones that meant that they both had to be paid exactly the same. By paying them both exactly the same through shares, it meant the other one had to receive salary or a bonus. Now, straight away, there is a tax cost to that. Okay, that tax cost has narrowed over the years. It's not the same as it once was, but they look to bring in a third-party investor. And by bringing in that third-party investor at that point, the share structure didn't allow it to be easily done. So they then had to sell some of their existing shares to that person, which created a capital gains tax charge. But it then gave that third person joining the same rights as the existing two, which meant, again, you were pushing them into having to take money out of that company in the salary bonus way, costing tax. It then came time to sell this business. The investment had worked and it came time to sell it. But one of them wanted to stay. And because one of them wanted to stay and there was no rules as to who could sell and what could sell and how it could sell, they ended up all fighting each other. And they all fought each other using lawyers, and it ended up as a big court case. This is a practical business in the Northwest that I'd worked with. That law case cost them nearly £750,000 and wiped out the entire value of that company in doing it. So for spending an hour and 15 quid earlier in that business life, it would have saved £750,000. And this is the type of example that I see all the time. You can watch this type of video in the early stages of a business and think, well, what's the point of this? Why am I spending more effort and energy on doing something that may happen down that line? But I'd say to you, do you ever walk into a room without knowing how you're going to walk out of it? Because that's what you can potentially create with a limited company. If you don't set it up right in that first circumstance, you can be walking into a room not knowing how you're going to walk out of it. And spending that hour and that £30–40 extra with somebody that has done this a lot will create a significant difference for you and your business down the line. Now, I'm going to pause at that stage. Thank you so much for listening to this. I really appreciate your time. You've done the first step in creating your business by watching something like this. My name is Rob Newman, and that's from Carter, Collins and Meyer.